If you're going to work tomorrow simply because that's what you did yesterday, you're on the slow road to nowhere. That's a brutal truth most people never face. Every morning, millions of people wake up, drag themselves out of bed, and march into a life that looks suspiciously like yesterday, just hoping that one day, somehow, everything will magically get better. But here's the secret that almost nobody wants to admit: routine is the real killer of greatness. The enemy of progress isn't failure or rejection or even bad luck. It's comfort. And comfort, disguised as doing what you've always done, is quietly suffocating your potential every single day. This isn't another cliche pep talk about following your dreams or never giving up. You've heard that 1,000 times before, and if it actually worked, everyone would be living their dream life by now. Instead, let's talk about the ugly side of comfort, the silent decay that happens when you trade growth for familiarity. Let's talk about why, if you don't break your own cycle, you'll end up not just stuck, but actually falling behind. The truth is, every day you repeat yesterday's actions, you're not just standing still, you're drifting further from who you could be because you're now 2 days older and no closer to a goal you never set. So how does someone escape the gravitational pull of routine? That's where most people get it wrong. They wait for motivation to strike, or for the right time, or for someone else to push them. They tell themselves they'll get serious next week after this project, once the weather changes, or when the kids get out of school. It's always just around the corner, never today. That's why year after year, nothing changes except the calendar and the excuses. This is the epidemic nobody wants to talk about. The world is full of people who are about to do something amazing, but they never actually do. But the rare few who break free all share a set of unspoken, uncomfortable truths. That's what makes Zig Ziglar different and controversial. Ziglar wasn't just a legendary salesman or a cheerful motivator. He was a master at exposing the lies we tell ourselves to justify staying stuck. He called out the lazy habits, the half-hearted commitments, and the endless cycles of almost taking action. He understood something most success gurus never dare say. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't challenge your comfort, you'll get left behind, guaranteed. Why do some people seem to leap ahead while others with just as much intelligence or potential fade into the background? It's not luck, it's not some magical gift. It's because the successful ones face their own patterns head on and break them ruthlessly, sometimes painfully, but always honestly. Ziglar's story isn't just about motivational quotes and feel-good seminars. It's about raw, uncomfortable moments, losing everything, struggling to pay bills, getting laughed at, and battling years of self-doubt. It's about that moment of clarity when you realize that if you keep doing what you're doing, you'll wake up 5 years from now and wonder where your life went. So why do most people refuse to take the first step? Because change is scary, and because nobody wants to admit that maybe, just maybe, they're the reason nothing's happening. It's much easier to blame the economy, the company, your family, or the weather than to admit you haven't set a single real goal in years. But the people who actually transform their lives don't wait for permission. They don't care how comfortable they were yesterday. They step into discomfort, commit fully, and let the world adjust to them, not the other way around. But let's get brutally honest. The biggest barrier isn't the world or your boss or your background. It's your own routines. If you're waiting for the perfect time, you'll be waiting forever. If you're banking on your old habits getting you somewhere new, you'll end up exactly where you started or worse. And if you're thinking this sounds harsh, you're right. But sometimes harsh is the only thing that cuts through the noise of daily distractions and makes you actually pay attention. If you want something different, you have to do something different. There's no way around it. Now, before you think this is just another guilt trip, know this: almost every wildly successful person started out stuck. They faced fear, laziness, uncertainty, and excuses, sometimes for years. The difference, they eventually reached a point where the pain of staying the same was worse than the pain of change. That's the pivot point, when routine becomes unbearable and action becomes the only option. Zig Ziglar called this out over and over. Comfort is the enemy. Growth lives just outside your comfort zone, and the longer you avoid it, the harder it gets to break free. But if you think you can just think positive and it'll all fall into place, think again. Ziglar was famous for destroying the myth that positive thinking alone is enough. You can't wish yourself into a better life. You have to work to commit, to get uncomfortable, and to be brutally honest about your own habits. That's the message most people ignore, and it's the reason they stay stuck. This video is about those forgotten truths, the ones that sting, the ones you secretly know are true, the ones that, if you actually applied them, would change your life for good. Over the next few minutes, we're going to break down the raw, unfiltered rules that made Zig Ziglar a legend and why they matter even more today. You'll hear the controversial, often untold stories behind his rise, the moments of pain, self-doubt, and tough love that most gurus never talk about. And you'll learn exactly how to break out of your own routine starting today. Because the truth is, if you don't challenge your comfort will destroy your potential. And if you're still here watching, you're not like most people, you're ready to break the cycle. So let's get into it. It's tempting to believe that progress happens by default, that if you just show up, put in your time, and keep busy, somehow you'll get better. But that's the greatest lie routine will ever sell you. Most people aren't failing because they're making colossal mistakes. They're failing quietly, invisibly, by letting routine lull them into believing they're doing enough. This is the slow death that comes from never questioning your habits. It's easy, it's comfortable, and it's deadly. Think about it. How many people do you know who spend their whole lives on autopilot? They wake up at the same time, take the same route to work, do the same things, and return home with just enough energy to coast through another evening. It feels safe. But if you press pause and ask them, are you any closer to your goals than you were a year ago, what would they say? For most, the answer is silence, because deep down, everyone knows that repeating yesterday isn't growth, it's decay. Zig Ziglar didn't sugarcoat it. He put it simply, if you're going to work tomorrow because that's what you did yesterday, you're not going to be as good tomorrow as you were yesterday. You're now 2 days older and no closer to the goal you do not have. It's not just that routine keeps you stuck, it actively drags you backward, inch by inch, while you convince yourself you're staying the same. Why is this such a common trap? Because routine has a way of justifying itself. You convince yourself that you're being responsible, steady, even wise by sticking to what you know. You tell yourself you're avoiding risks, you pat yourself on the back for showing up day after day. But underneath all that comfort is the nagging sense that you're missing something bigger, messier, and a lot more meaningful than just another recycled day. Comfort zones are dangerous not because they're bad, but because they're so quietly addictive. Every time you choose comfort over challenge, you reinforce a cycle that's almost impossible to break. You get a hit of short-term relief. I don't have to push myself today, I'll do it tomorrow. But tomorrow rarely comes. Days blur into months, and suddenly the future you dreamed about is now the past you regret. That's the harsh reality most people never confront until it's too late. This is where routine becomes a silent assassin. You can look busy, even productive, while your life slides by unnoticed. The clock keeps ticking, but nothing real changes. Zig Ziglar watched thousands of people fall into this trap. Hard-working, intelligent people who were always about to do something great. The problem? They never dared to question their own routine. They thought discipline was enough. They thought showing up was all it took. But in reality, they were getting older, not better. And deep down, that's a terrifying realization. So how do you break free? It starts with brutal honesty. Take a hard look at your daily routine and ask yourself, is any of this moving me forward? Is this work actually getting me closer to a real goal, or am I just filling time? This isn't about guilt or shame, it's about clarity. Because as soon as you can see your habits for what they are, you regain the power to change them. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. Most people don't actually want to change. They want the results of change, the success, the admiration, the rewards, but not the disruption that real change demands. Routine offers a convenient excuse. I'm busy, I'm tired, I've got too much on my plate. But the truth is, comfort is a drug, and the withdrawal is real. The only cure is to step outside the cycle on purpose and start doing the hard things that growth requires. Ziglar's entire philosophy is built on the idea that comfort is the enemy of greatness. He knew firsthand what it was like to feel stuck, to lose and struggle, to wake up every day wondering if things would ever get better. But instead of hiding from discomfort, he leaned into it. He called out the lazy thinking and the false promises of routine. And in doing so, he laid out a blueprint for anyone willing to break free. But this blueprint isn't easy. It means waking up earlier than you want. It means risking embarrassment, failure, and criticism. It means taking action before you feel ready, because if you wait until you're ready, you'll wait forever. Most importantly, it means redefining what success actually looks like. Not a series of comfortable days, but a series of uncomfortable decisions that slowly, steadily reshape your life. Here's the real punchline. Most people aren't even aware they're stuck. Routine blinds you to the possibility of change. You settle for good enough, tell yourself stories about how you're doing your best, and push your real dreams further and further into the future. But deep down, you know better. You know that staying safe is just another way of giving up. And one day, when you finally look up, you'll realize you traded everything you wanted for a lifetime of comfort, and that comfort didn't deliver what it promised. It's a hard truth, but it's also a call to action. Because once you see the trap, you can't unsee it. You can choose today to do something different. To interrupt your routine, shake up your comfort, and set a new course, even if it's small, even if it's scary, even if you have no idea where it leads. Ziglar would say, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. And that starts with breaking your own cycle. So before you move on, before you tell yourself maybe later, ask yourself one question. Is the life you're living today the one you want 5 years from now? If the answer is no, then comfort is the problem and breaking your routine is the solution. But what separates the people who break free from those who stay trapped? What's the missing ingredient, the thing that turns discomfort into transformation? That's where commitment comes in, and it's rarely what you think. There's a reason most people stay stuck even after they finally recognize the trap of routine. It's not that they're lazy or dumb or even afraid of change, at least not at first. The truth is, most people simply don't believe that change is possible for them. Not truly, not deep down where it matters. They've been told to believe in themselves so many times that the words have lost all meaning. But here's where it gets real. Belief isn't just a feel-good slogan. It's the engine that powers every real transformation. And without it, even the bravest step outside your comfort zone won't get you far. This is where Zig Ziglar's story gets interesting and a little uncomfortable, because Zig didn't start out as a motivational legend. He started out broke, stuck, and invisible. For years he sold heavy-duty cookware door to door, barely scraping by. He was so desperate that he joked about selling his own furniture and car because that's almost how bad it got. He worked hard, but nothing clicked. He was grinding, but the results just weren't coming. Sound familiar? It's the same struggle most people face when they finally try to break out of routine. You take a risk, you work hard, and sometimes you fail over and over. But then everything changed because of one conversation. A single moment of belief from someone who saw something in Zig that he couldn't see in himself. That man was P.C. Merrill, a company leader who'd already broken every record in the business. Merrill looked Zig in the eye and said, you could be a great one. You could be the national champion. You've got everything it takes if you just believed in yourself and went to work on a regular schedule. Zig had never heard that before. He'd always been loved, sure, but nobody ever looked at him and said, you're a champion. It's easy to underestimate the power of those words. But for Zig, they landed like a lightning strike. Suddenly, he wasn't just another wandering generality. He was a meaningful, specific someone with the potential to do something extraordinary. All it took was one person's belief. And here's the twist: that belief didn't magically solve all Zig's problems overnight. It didn't erase his doubts or remove the obstacles. What it did was light a fire. It gave him a reason to fight through the discomfort, to push past the excuses, to stick it out when most people would have quit. In 1 year, Zig went from not even making the top 5,000 salespeople to becoming number 2 out of 7,000. That wasn't luck. It wasn't just hard work either. It was the combination of relentless effort and the kind of belief that makes you show up even when nobody's watching. But belief is only half the equation. The other half is commitment. A word that's easy to say but rare to live. Commitment isn't about saying you want something, it's about what you do when things get hard. As Zig put it, some people are about as committed as a kamikaze pilot on his 39th mission. They talk a big game, but when it's time to act, they flinch. Real commitment means sticking with it when the excitement wears off. It means making the hard choices, doing the boring work, and grinding through setbacks that would send most people running for the exit. Here's the dirty secret of success: you will hit rough spots, not if, but when. If you're not committed, the first setback will have you looking for the exit. Maybe this isn't for me, maybe I'm not cut out for this, maybe next year. But if you're truly committed, your first thought isn't how do I get out of this, it's how do I solve this. Commitment means your problems become puzzles, not roadblocks. It's the difference between being a dabbler and being a champion. But how do you get that level of commitment? It doesn't come from willpower alone, it comes from clarity. You have to know what you want, why you want it, and what you're willing to sacrifice to get it. That's why belief is so important. You won't commit to something you secretly don't believe is possible. And you won't believe it's possible unless you see yourself as worthy of success. That's what P.C. Merrill gave Zig: permission to believe and a challenge to commit. Think about your own life for a second. Where have you been half in, half out? Where have you said you're committed, but the first sign of trouble has you running for cover? What would happen if you decided today to go all in, not just with your time, but with your heart, your energy, your belief? It's a scary thought because full commitment means no more excuses. If you fail, it's on you. But if you win, it's because you actually showed up and did the work. That's the freedom and the terror of real commitment. There's another reason commitment is so rare: it makes you face yourself. When you're truly committed, you can't hide behind circumstances. You have to admit when you mess up. You have to take responsibility for your results. And you have to keep showing up day after day, long after everyone else has quit. That's not glamorous, it's not Instagram worthy, but it's the only way to get anything worth having. Zig Ziglar's own transformation didn't happen because he was smarter, luckier, or more talented than everyone else. It happened because he finally believed in himself and then backed it up with relentless, unwavering commitment. He stopped waiting for things to get easier. He stopped looking for a shortcut, and he started living like the champion someone else already saw in him. But belief and commitment aren't just personal virtues, they're contagious. When you commit fully, you inspire others to do the same. You become a force in the lives of your friends, your coworkers, your family. You raise the standard for everyone around you. That's the ripple effect of real belief and true commitment. It's how one person's faith can change not just your life, but the lives of everyone you touch. So the next time you're tempted to quit, to wait for the right time, or to drift back into routine, remember this: greatness begins the moment you decide to truly believe and refuse to give up. Every champion was once a beginner who chose to commit long after the excitement faded. But belief and commitment only matter if you actually take action. And that's where most people fail, by waiting for perfect timing and getting trapped in the cook in the squat syndrome. What does that mean? You're about to find out. No matter how much belief or commitment you have, there's one final trap that kills more dreams than failure ever could: waiting. Not outright quitting, just stalling, hesitating, almost taking action, and convincing yourself that the right moment is just around the corner. Ziglar had a name for this phenomena, a phrase as Southern as sweet tea and twice as cutting, getting cooked in the squat. It's a lesson he learned as a boy, and it's burned into the memory of anyone who's ever heard him speak. The story goes like this. During the Great Depression, Zig's family lived next door to some wealthy folks. He knew they were rich for two reasons. One, they had a cook, and two, the cook actually had something to cook. That alone was a miracle in those lean years. But one day at lunch, the cook brought out a tray of biscuits so flat they looked like they'd been run over. Zig, never shy with a question, asked what happened. The cook let out a deep belly laugh and said, "They squatted to rise, but they just got cooked in the squat." That's more than just a funny line. It's a perfect metaphor for what happens to most people's ambitions. How many times have you met someone who's always about to do something big? They're fixing to launch a business, getting ready to lose weight, planning to write a book, waiting for the perfect time to take action. They squat, they get ready to rise, but then they just stay there thinking, planning, overanalyzing, and never actually moving. Eventually, the heat of life catches up to them, and they get cooked in place, never reaching their full height. This cooked in the squat syndrome is everywhere. People delay their dreams for reasons that sound logical on the surface. I'll start after the kids graduate. I'll get serious when work slows down. Let me just get through the holidays. But those seasons pass and the excuses morph and multiply. There's always a reason to wait. There's always something else to do first. And before you know it, you've spent years stuck in the starting position, wondering why nothing ever changes. It sounds harsh, but it's true. The graveyard of potential is filled with people who are always just about to. The myth of perfect timing is the most seductive lie of all. Life will never hand you a moment where everything lines up perfectly, where you have enough money, energy, support, and confidence all at once. That moment doesn't exist. If you keep waiting for it, you'll get left behind by people who are willing to start before they felt ready. There's a hidden danger to waiting that most people never realize until it's too late. Every time you delay, you reinforce the idea that action is something to be postponed. It becomes a habit, a pattern so deeply ingrained that breaking it feels impossible. Waiting becomes who you are, and the longer you wait, the harder it gets to move. Eventually, the window of opportunity slams shut, and you're left wondering what could have been. Ziglar wasn't afraid to call this out. He saw firsthand how people would circle around their goals for years, convincing themselves that one day they'd take the leap. But days turned into months and months into years. The brutal reality, if you don't act now, you probably never will. The world is full of people who talk about what they're going to do. Success belongs to the rare few who actually do it. Why is it so hard to break the cycle? Because waiting feels safe. There's no risk in planning, no danger in getting ready. Action, on the other hand, is scary. It means exposing yourself to failure, criticism, and discomfort. It means facing the possibility that you might fall flat, and that's a fear so powerful it can keep you stuck forever. But here's the catch. Waiting doesn't keep you safe. It keeps you small. It trades growth for comfort and potential for regret. The world will not wait for you to get ready. It will not pause while you work up the nerve to act. Life moves on with or without you, and the opportunities you pass up today may never come back. So how do you break free from getting cooked in the squat? The answer is simple but not easy. Do it now. Take the first imperfect step, even if you feel unprepared. Move before you're ready. The magic isn't in the planning, it's in the action. You don't have to have it all figured out. Most successful people start messy and figure things out as they go. The difference is they start. Ziglar would say, the people who wait for changes to take place out there before they do the changing in here are flat going to end up getting cooked in the squat. In other words, if you're waiting for the world to change before you do, you'll never move at all. The change has to start with you, and it has to start now. But there's a deeper reason most people get stuck. fear of failure. Yes, but also fear of what success might demand. Real change means letting go of excuses and taking responsibility. It means admitting that your life is a reflection of your choices, not your circumstances. That's a tough pill to swallow, but it's also the most empowering thing you can realize. Because if you're responsible, you can also change it. Every time you catch yourself saying, "I'll do it when," stop. Interrupt the pattern. Remind yourself that action is the only cure for stagnation. The future is built by those who act, not those who wait. You don't want to wake up one day and realize your dreams got cooked in the squat. But here's the next truth. Even the best intentions fall flat without a system for preparation and integrity. Getting started is just the beginning. Staying committed, even after the excitement fades, is what separates those who last from those who burn out. How do you keep moving, and what role does preparation play in true success? Let's pull back the curtain. Most people have a story they love to tell themselves that after they finally take action, everything will fall into place on its own. But in reality, the difference between a one-hit wonder and a true champion comes down to two almost old-fashioned words: preparation and integrity. If belief and commitment get you started, these are what keep you going long after the excitement wears off and the setbacks start piling up. Let's get one thing straight. There's a world of difference between doing something and doing it well. Zig Ziglar understood this better than anyone. He was famous for never winging it. Even when he'd given the same talk hundreds of times, he still spent hours preparing. Why? Because he knew the moment you start thinking you can just show up and coast on yesterday's effort, you're finished. That's not confidence, that's arrogance. And in the real world, arrogance always gets exposed. Zig told a story about one of his most important talks, the kind he'd given hundreds of times before. Most people would think, "I've done this so many times I could do it in my sleep." But Zig, he spent over 6 hours getting ready, reviewing, reworking, digging for a new angle that would make it fresh and valuable for that specific audience. Not because he doubted his ability, but because he respected the people in the room. If you show up unprepared, he'd say, "You don't just let yourself down. You betray the trust of everyone counting on you." That attitude is the foundation of integrity. It's not about never making mistakes. It's about refusing to cut corners or deliver less than your best. Integrity is showing up ready no matter how many times you've done it before, no matter how much easier it would be to just wing it. It's doing the hard, boring, unseen work that separates the professionals from the amateurs. In Zig's world, integrity wasn't just about honesty or morality. It was about consistency. It was about treating every opportunity like it mattered, because it does. It's easy to dismiss preparation as unnecessary when you've been around the block a few times. After all, don't you already know what you're doing? But the truth is, the minute you start resting on your past experience, you start slipping. Just because you've succeeded before doesn't mean you will again unless you keep earning it every day. That's why the most dangerous phrase in any career or relationship is, "I've got this." The second you think you've got it, you stop growing. And the second you stop growing, you start falling behind. But preparation isn't just about technical skill, it's about the mindset you bring to every challenge. Ziglar's opportunity clock story sums this up perfectly. Most people wake up dreading the alarm, treating every morning as just another obligation. But Zig, he saw every alarm as an opportunity. If you can hear the clock, it means you've still got a shot. If you can get out of bed and show up, rain or shine, tired or inspired, you're already ahead of the pack. It's the discipline of showing up prepared that builds confidence, not the other way around. And then there's the lesson Zig learned from his mother, a lesson about loyalty, promises, and the true meaning of commitment. Early in his career, he almost skipped the most important sales meeting of his life. It was cold, dark, miserable outside. Every logical excuse was screaming at him to stay home. But his mother's words echoed in his head, "If you work for a man, you work for him all the way. Your word is your bond. If your word is no good, you're no good, you're no good." Zig forced himself out of bed and into the cold. He kept his promise. and that meeting changed his entire life. That's the real power of integrity, doing what you say you'll do even when nobody would blame you for quitting. It's easy to look at successful people and see only the highlight reel, the big wins, the applause, the rewards. What you don't see are the endless hours of quiet preparation, the decisions to do the right thing when it would have been easier to take the shortcut. True champions don't just show up when it's easy. They show up every single time ready to deliver. They prepare like every opportunity matters because to them it does. There's another angle to integrity that most people miss. It's not just about honesty with others, but with yourself. Are you really giving your best effort, or are you coasting? Are you showing up fully, or are you relying on old routines to carry you through? Zig's career was built on the discipline of asking tough questions and holding himself to a higher standard even when no one was looking. But here's a deeper truth. Integrity and preparation aren't glamorous. They don't get headlines or viral moments. They're quiet, steady, and often invisible. But over time, they build a reputation and a self-respect that nothing else can match. When you operate this way, setbacks don't break you. They refine you. You don't get derailed by obstacles because you know you've done the work. You're prepared. You're reliable. You become the person who can be trusted to show up, not just for others, but for yourself. Most people want the results of preparation and integrity, but they don't want to pay the price. They want recognition without effort, rewards without sacrifice. But in the real world, the people who rise to the top are the ones who out-prepare, outlast, and outwork everyone else, not because it's easy, but because it's who they are. So ask yourself, are you showing up prepared? Are you living with integrity even when it's inconvenient? Are you willing to put in the work over and over long after the novelty wears off? If you can answer yes, even most of the time, you're already ahead of 99% of the world. But here's the twist. Preparation and integrity aren't enough if you're headed in the wrong direction. All the effort in the world means nothing without a clear target. That's why the next rule is the real game changer, the truth about setting goals that actually move you forward. Because if you don't know where you're going, all the preparation in the world won't save you. You can show up every day. You can outwork and outprepare everyone else, but if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up nowhere fast. The world is full of people grinding away at full speed in the wrong direction. People who are busy, exhausted, and deeply frustrated, all because they never stop to ask a simple question, what am I actually trying to achieve? That's why the next lesson in Zig Ziglar's philosophy isn't just important, it's essential. Goals aren't some abstract motivational poster on the wall. They are the only thing separating progress from pointless effort. Zig put it bluntly, you'll never make it as a wandering generality. You must become a meaningful specific. Without goals, you are just moving, not advancing. You're expending energy, but not changing your life. Zig was the first to admit he'd spent years falling into the wandering generality trap. For 24 years, he wanted to lose weight. He talked about it. He planned for it. He promised himself every January that this year would be different. And every year he failed. Not for lack of trying, he'd lost thousands of pounds over the decades, but it never stuck. Why? Because wanting something and actually pursuing it are two different things. What finally changed the moment he got specific. Zig wrote down his goal, he set a date, he listed the obstacles he'd have to overcome and the people he'd need help from. He created a step-by-step plan of action and identified the benefits he'd get from sticking with it. Only then, when the goal was written, structured, and real, did it become possible. And once it was possible, it happened. The weight came off, the cycle was broken, the dream became a result. This wasn't just a personal lesson. Zig watched the same pattern play out on a global scale. In 1950, Japan was a devastated nation, cities flattened, industries destroyed, hope nearly gone. But then something remarkable happened. Japanese leaders from both government and industry got together and made a radical decision. They set a national goal, not a vague dream, but a concrete target. We will be the #1 nation in the world in textile production during the 1950s. By 1959, against all odds, they did it. But they didn't stop there. In 1960, with no significant iron or coal resources, Japan set another goal: become the world leader in steel production. Everyone thought it was crazy, yet they pulled it off. By 1970, Japan had overtaken much larger, richer countries. The same thing happened with automobiles in the 1970s and electronics in the 1980s. Each time, the process was the same: set a goal, make it specific, and get everyone moving in the same direction. The lesson: goals don't care who sets them. They work for nations, companies, and people. If you actually set them and follow through, it's the one non-negotiable rule of progress. You can't drift into greatness. You have to define it, pursue it, and measure it. Otherwise, you're just another face in the crowd, working hard for nothing in particular. So why do so many people avoid real goal setting? Because it's uncomfortable. When you set a specific goal, you force yourself to face reality. You make your intentions public, even if it's only to yourself. You have to admit what you want and risk failing to get it. Vague dreams are easy. Real goals are terrifying because they make you accountable. But here's the paradox: until you set a goal, you're failing by default. You might not realize it because there's no scoreboard. But every day you delay, you're pushing your dreams further away. You're drifting, not growing. Zig loved to share the wisdom of J.C. Penney, a man who built a retail empire from scratch. Give me a stock clerk with a goal, and I'll give you a man who'll make history. But give me a man without a goal, and I'll give you a stock clerk. It's not your job, your background, or your resources that determine your destiny. It's whether you have a target worth aiming for. But let's get practical. How do you set a goal that actually sticks? It's more than just writing down a wish. Start by making it specific. I want to lose 20 pounds by September 1. List your obstacles: late night cravings, lack of exercise, social pressure. Identify who can help: a friend to walk with, a nutritionist, an accountability partner. Build your plan: meal prepping, workout schedules, daily check-ins. Set a deadline and honor it like a contract. Finally, list the benefits: more energy, better sleep, confidence, health. It doesn't matter what your goal is: wealth, relationships, learning a new skill. The formula is the same. If you can't answer what, why, when, and how, you're still just wishing. When you can, your odds of success skyrocket. But Zig took this one step further. He challenged people to realize that goals are more than personal victories. They're the engine of every real change, big or small. Goals do not care who has them, he said. If you want to rewrite your life, you need a target. Without it, you're doomed to wander, work, and wear yourself out for nothing. Still, there's a warning here. Even when people start setting goals, many chase things that never actually matter to them. That's why the next lesson is so powerful and so rarely taught. Because success is more than hitting targets. It's knowing which targets are worth hitting. You can chase the wrong dream for a lifetime and still end up empty. So before you pour your energy into any new goal, ask yourself, is this really what I want, or am I just copying someone else's vision? Because the danger isn't just being a wandering generality, it's waking up one day and realizing you climbed the wrong mountain. But how do you actually know if you're winning at life or just busy? How do you redefine success so you're not just chasing more, but chasing better? That's the next rule, and it's one most people never even think to question. You can hustle nonstop. You can hit your goals, check off your to-do list, and climb every ladder you see. But if you're chasing someone else's definition of success, you can win all the wrong prizes and end up more lost than when you started. That's the haunting paradox at the heart of so many high achievers. They're working harder than ever, but feeling emptier every day. It's the tragedy Zig Ziglar saw again and again. and it's a trap nobody talks about until it's too late. Zig put it best through a story about a man named Steve Walker. Steve's friend was desperate. He sent Zig a letter and even offered a hefty check if Zig would just talk sense into Steve. Why? Because Steve was modeling his life after his boss. To outsiders, his boss looked like the perfect role model. Rich, powerful, always in control. Steve figured that if he just kept pushing, grinding, and working himself to exhaustion, he'd eventually arrive at the same success. But here's where Zig's wisdom goes deeper than any success hacks or hustle culture platitudes. Instead of telling Steve how to work even harder, Zig asked a simple, uncomfortable question. What do you actually call success? Not the Instagram version, not the version that sells books and seminars, your version. Steve had never thought about it. Most people haven't. We chase images and titles and dollar amounts because everyone else does. But when you strip it all down, what are you really after? Steve's list came out slowly, hesitantly, over a few minutes of awkward honesty. Happiness, health, prosperity, security, friends, peace of mind, family, and hope for the future. That's it. Not Lamborghinis, not fancy job titles, not likes and followers. The real markers of a life well lived. But then Zig started asking Steve to grade his role model on each one. Happiness, he's got ulcers, never smiles, minus. Health, same story, minus. Peace of mind, what's eating him is worse than what he eats, minus. Friends, I don't think he's got any real ones, minus. Family, his wife's divorcing him, minus. Prosperity, that Steve admitted was the only clear plus. Security, as secure as money can make you, but Zig pointed out how fast fortunes change. Hope for the future. Even Steve had to admit, now that I think about it, I don't think he's got any. When the dust settled, Steve's role model racked up 6 minuses, 1 plus, and a question mark. Would Steve swap places with his boss now? Knowing what he knew, the answer, suddenly obvious, was no. And that moment is where everything shifts. It's a powerful, often uncomfortable exercise. What if you did it for your own life right now? Forget the highlight reels, forget what you tell people at parties. Are you actually successful by your own definition, or just playing the game because that's what everyone else does? For most people, this realization is both liberating and terrifying. It's the moment you see the difference between looking successful and feeling successful. Zig's point is brutal in its simplicity. You've got to know where you are before you can really determine your chances of getting what you really want out of life. Most people never pause long enough to figure out what actually matters to them. They just keep running faster, hoping the finish line will finally feel like home. But if you never set your own finish line, you're always running someone else's race. This isn't just philosophy, it's practical advice. The real challenge is to take your own inventory. Happiness, health, prosperity, security, friends, peace of mind, family, hope for the future. Would you give yourself a plus, minus, or question mark? And here's the kicker. The only grades that matter are the ones you give yourself, not the ones assigned by society, your parents, your boss, or your social feed. But here's where most people get tripped up. Even after realizing what actually matters, they keep chasing the wrong rewards out of habit or fear. It's hard to walk away from winning when everyone else is still cheering. It takes guts to admit that more money or status or public applause won't solve what's empty on the inside. It's even harder to admit when you've sacrificed real things, friendships, peace of mind, your health, for fake trophies. Zig's lesson is clear. Don't measure your life by someone else's scoreboard. You might win, but the victory will feel hollow. Instead, define your own markers of success. Make your own rules, and then grade yourself honestly. If you find a minus, don't ignore it. Decide what matters, and then pursue it with the same drive you once gave to other people's dreams. There's a strange freedom in this approach. Once you stop chasing success for its own sake, you open up space to chase something better, something that actually fulfills you. The world won't always understand it. Some people will think you're crazy for giving up the grind. Let them, because the only life you have to live is yours. This is the pivot point in every real transformation. It's the moment you stop hustling for the wrong finish line and start running towards something that actually matters. It's when you go from appearing to win to actually winning on your terms. But this clarity brings a new challenge. Now that you know what matters, how do you make it happen? How do you keep moving when motivation fades and progress is slow? The next lesson is all about the secret most people overlook, the real meaning of effort, the stove of life paradox, and why the greatest rewards only come after you put in the work. Most people want success to work like a vending machine. Drop in some effort and out pops the reward. But if you've ever tried to shortcut your way to something big, you already know the universe doesn't work on that system. There's a deeper law at work, and Ziglar captured it with a parable he repeated everywhere he went, the stove of life. Here's how he told it. Imagine someone standing in front of a cold stove, arms crossed, waiting for heat. They glare at the metal and say, "Now, stove, you give me some heat, then I'll put some wood in you." Absurd, right? Yet that's exactly how most people approach their dreams. They say to life, "Give me the results first, then I'll work harder. Show me the rewards, then I'll commit. Deliver the recognition, and then I'll invest." But the stove doesn't care about your hopes or intentions. You have to put the wood in first, then light the fire, and only then, after consistent, sometimes grueling effort, does the heat show up. It's a simple truth, but it exposes a painful reality. So many people are standing in front of their goals, waiting to be motivated, waiting for proof they'll succeed before they start acting like a success. They want guarantees without investment, the raise before the work, the promotion before the responsibility. It's as backward as demanding warmth from a stove you never bothered to fuel. This paradox plays out everywhere. The employee who says, "Give me a raise, then I'll start showing up on time." The student who pleads, "Give me the grade, then I'll study next semester." The business owner who wishes, "Let me see the customers, then I'll start advertising." Life doesn't bend that way. If you want heat, you start by putting something in long before you know what's coming back. Zig took this lesson a step further with another story. Two men in South Alabama pumping water from a deep well. The first, Bernard, starts working the pump but soon gets discouraged. "I don't believe there's any water down there." The other, Jimmy, insists, "There's water, but you have to keep pumping. These wells are deep, the water is cool and pure, but it takes work." Bernard wants instant results. When he doesn't get them, he's ready to quit. Jimmy keeps at it, and after what feels like forever, the water starts to flow. Not a trickle, but a steady stream, more than they could ever use. The metaphor is clear. Most people give up just before the water reaches the surface. They try for a while, don't see results, and bail out. They don't realize that most progress is invisible at first, building slowly beneath the surface. Then, one day, it erupts into view, but only for those who didn't stop. There's a hidden danger in our culture's obsession with trying. People say, "I'll give it a shot. If it works out, great. If not, at least I tried." But trying is often just a way to keep one foot out the door. It's insurance against disappointment. If you only try, you never have to fully commit. And if you never fully commit, you'll never have to face the possibility that your best wasn't good enough. But Zig didn't believe in hedging bets. He said, when you get into something, grab that sucker and get with it. Half-hearted effort produces half-hearted results if you're lucky. In reality, it produces nothing. The world doesn't reward effort, it rewards results. The only way to get results is to pour yourself in before you know what you'll get back. That's scary, but it's also the only thing that works. What does this look like in real life? It's showing up to practice when nobody's watching. It's investing in your business when you're still losing money. It's studying after midnight, long after everyone else is asleep. It's failing, learning, and trying again with even more effort, not less. Most people want the glory of the harvest. but they're unwilling to do the invisible work of planting, watering, and waiting. There's another brutal reality here. The more meaningful the goal, the longer it takes to see results. If you could become a doctor in 6 weeks, the rewards would be minimal, and so would the impact. If you could become a world-class athlete after one workout, nobody would respect it. The depth of your success is directly tied to the depth of your effort. The longer and harder you work before the payoff, the sweeter and more lasting the reward. The real meaning of effort is this: you have to risk disappointment. You have to be willing to work, to sweat, to fail with no guarantees. The only promise is that quitting guarantees nothing will happen. But if you keep going, keep pumping, keep feeding the fire, the results will come, not always on your schedule, but always in proportion to your commitment. So the next time you catch yourself hesitating, waiting for proof or permission, remember the stove of life. Ask yourself, have I put in the wood? Am I pumping the well or waiting for the water to rise on its own? If you want the heat, the harvest, the results, act first, believe second, and only expect the reward after the work is done. But there's one more piece to this puzzle, the mindset that powers all this effort. Because you can do everything right on the outside, but if your thinking is poisoned, your results will be too. How do you cure the silent killer of achievement, stinking thinking? That's the secret to turning raw effort into lasting success. The most overlooked secret of success isn't talent, hard work, or even the right opportunities. It's mindset. You can have the best strategies in the world, but if your thoughts are sabotaging you, you'll never break out of the cycle that's holding you back. Zig Ziglar called it stinking thinking, and he saw it ruin more dreams than any lack of skill or luck ever could. So what is stinking thinking? It's the invisible script running in your head, convincing you that things will never change, that you'll never be good enough, and that your problems are unsolvable. It's the negative soundtrack that makes every challenge look bigger and every opportunity look smaller. And the worst part, most people don't even realize it's happening. They think they're just being realistic. In truth, they're building walls between themselves and their potential, one negative thought at a time. Zig was relentless about attacking this mindset. He knew firsthand how destructive it could be, but he also knew something powerful. If you can change your thinking, you can change your results, sometimes almost overnight. One of Zig's most famous stories was about a woman from Birmingham, Alabama. She came to him backstage before a seminar, radiating anger and frustration. I hate my job. I hate everything about it. I hate everybody down there. She was the queen of stinking thinking. She wasn't looking for a solution. She wanted sympathy, someone to tell her she was right and the world was wrong. But Zig didn't hand out pity. He looked her in the eye and said, I'm afraid your problem is about to get worse. That jolted her. Why? She snapped. Because, Zig replied, I believe they're going to fire you. The woman was stunned. She'd never thought her negativity might be the problem, or that she might lose the very thing she spent so much energy complaining about. This is the root of stinking thinking. You become addicted to the problem. The more you complain, the more attention you get, and the less likely you are to take responsibility. People wear their misery like a badge. But Zig knew the cure, and it started with gratitude. He gave the woman a simple, almost ridiculous assignment. Get a notebook and write, I like my job because at the top. She protested. She didn't like a single thing about her job. Zig pressed on. They pay you, don't they? Reluctantly, she admitted they did. You like getting paid? Well, yes. Write it down. It was the first crack in the wall. By the time Zig was done with her, she had a list of 22 reasons to like her job. The list included pay, vacation time, health insurance, retirement, proximity to home, and other benefits she had taken for granted. But the real breakthrough came with the next step. Every morning and night, she had to stand in front of a mirror and say out loud with energy, I love my job because, and read the list. Sounds corny? Maybe. But 6 weeks later, the same woman showed up to another seminar, transformed, smiling, confident, and bursting with energy. Mr. Ziglar, she beamed, you cannot believe how much those people down there have changed. Of course, Zig knew the truth. She had changed. Her thinking changed first, then her attitude, then her results. Why does this work? Because gratitude is the ultimate antidote to negativity. When you start looking for things to appreciate, your mind gets rewired. You stop fixating on problems and start noticing possibilities. Hans Selye, the legendary stress researcher, called gratitude the healthiest of all human emotions. It lowers stress, increases happiness, and even boosts productivity. But this isn't just about feeling good, it's about creating a mindset that allows you to actually perform at your best. When you practice gratitude, you're not ignoring problems, you're simply refusing to let them dominate your thinking. You're training your brain to see opportunities where others see obstacles. There's a deeper level too. Your thoughts shape your self-talk, and your self-talk shapes your actions. If you constantly tell yourself, I'll never amount to anything, you'll start acting in ways that prove yourself right. If you say, I'm always late, always a mess, never good at this, those words become self-fulfilling prophecies. It's not magic, it's psychology. Change your words, and over time, you'll change your actions and your outcomes. But the process doesn't end there. Zig recognized that for many people, negative thinking was programmed into them by parents, teachers, even spouses, people who often with good intentions planted seeds of doubt and criticism. Why can't you be more like your brother? You're always so lazy, you'll never succeed at that. Over the years, these messages harden into beliefs. The good news, you can reprogram your mind. It starts with awareness, catching yourself in the act of negative thinking and deliberately choosing better thoughts. It's not about lying to yourself, but about focusing on what's true and useful. Every day, take a minute to write down a few things you're grateful for. Every time you catch yourself complaining, force yourself to list 3 things that are actually working in your life. Practice gratitude until it becomes your default setting. And here's the bonus. When you become a good finder instead of a fault finder, people notice. You become more likable, more influential, and more resilient. Problems shrink, solutions show up. The world doesn't magically get easier, but your ability to handle it grows exponentially. This is the real secret of Zig Ziglar's success, not just for him, but for the millions he inspired. He taught people how to swap stinking thinking for positive, grateful, solution-focused thinking. He proved that anyone, no matter how negative, frustrated, or stuck, could turn their life around from the inside out. But mindset isn't just a one-time fix, it's a habit built day by day. And if you want to keep growing, you need one more principle, the relentless student's mindset. Because no matter how much you know or how far you've come, the world belongs to those who never stop learning, growing, and adapting. That's the final lesson, and maybe the most important one of all. One of Zig Ziglar's most radical beliefs, and maybe the least glamorous, is that there's no such thing as arriving. No finish line. No magic age or accomplishment where you finally have it all figured out. Success, he said, is reserved for the relentless students, the ones who never stop growing, no matter how much they've achieved. Most people outgrow their willingness to be beginners. When we're kids, we expect to mess up, learn, and get better. But as adults, we start fearing failure, embarrassment, criticism, looking dumb for not knowing it all. So we avoid anything new. We stick to what we know, and slowly our world shrinks. Zig saw this everywhere, especially among people who were successful by traditional standards. They hit a plateau, settled in, and spent the rest of their careers defending old knowledge instead of chasing new skills. But here's the truth. The most dangerous thing you can do in any field is to stop learning. The world is changing too fast. The minute you think you've graduated, you start falling behind. That's why Zig famously committed to reading at least 20 minutes a day, even after he was already at the top of his field. This is my business, this is my life, this is my profession. I got to do it, he'd say. He wasn't reading just for pleasure, but for survival, because he knew that in the game of life, the constant student wins every time. Think about the math. If the average adult reads about 220 words per minute, 20 minutes a day adds up to roughly 18 full-length books a year. That's 18 more than most people ever touch. And it's not just about books, it's podcasts, interviews, seminars, online courses. The key is to feed your mind with things that push you, challenge you, and make you just a little uncomfortable. This isn't just theory. The people who dominate their fields, whether it's business, sports, medicine, or the arts, are always learning, always testing, always hungry for new information. They know the rules change, technology evolves, strategies that worked yesterday might not work tomorrow. To stay relevant, you have to keep growing. But the relentless student's mindset is about more than just collecting information. It's about embracing the awkwardness of doing something badly at first. Zig had a line he loved: anything worth doing is worth doing poorly until you can learn to do it well. He'd tell stories about his first sales calls, pathetic, and his first speeches, a disaster. But he kept at it. Most people give up the moment they hit a wall, assuming their first try is a preview of their final result. Not Zig. He knew that every skill starts ugly, and that persistence is what transforms embarrassment into expertise. If you're not willing to be a beginner, you'll never be anything more than average. That's the reality most people can't stomach. They want to be seen as talented without putting in the hours it takes to earn it. But mastery only comes to those who are willing to look foolish, try again, and fail forward. Here's a practical takeaway. Choose one area you want to grow in: public speaking, negotiation, writing, anything. Commit to 20 minutes a day of focused learning. Don't just skim study. Take notes, reflect, practice. Give yourself permission to be lousy at first. You'll be amazed how fast you improve if you stick with it. This simple habit is the difference between stagnation and skyrocketing growth. But here's the hard truth: growth hurts. It takes time, effort, and humility. It demands that you leave your ego at the door and embrace the discomfort of not knowing. Most people won't do it. They'll settle for repeating last year's results, hoping it's enough. But the world belongs to those who are brave enough to stay in student mode forever. There's another bonus too. A relentless student's mindset inoculates you against complacency and arrogance. The more you learn, the more you realize how much you don't know. That humility keeps you open, curious, and creative. It makes you better not just at your craft, but at life. You become the person who can adapt, reinvent, and thrive, no matter how much the world changes around you. And remember, being a student isn't just about consuming content, it's about acting on what you learn. The cycle is simple: learn, apply, adjust, repeat. Read a chapter, then practice the principle. Listen to a podcast, then test the idea at work or at home. The relentless student doesn't just collect knowledge, they transform it into results. Zig's legacy is proof that the relentless student always wins in the end. He built an empire not by standing still, but by learning, changing, and growing every single day. His story is a reminder that you never arrive, you just level up one day at a time. So here's the challenge. Don't let comfort, fear, or pride keep you from becoming who you could be. Stay hungry, stay humble, stay in motion. Because in the end, the people who win aren't the ones who know the most. They're the ones who keep learning no matter what. But this isn't the end of the journey, it's just the beginning. Now that you know the rules, the real question is, what are you going to do about it? The conclusion pulls everything together with a final urgent challenge. Let's take a breath and look back at what we've uncovered together. Maybe you started this video expecting some clever productivity hacks or a few motivational sound bites. But now you know what really separates the people who change their lives from those who just talk about it. It's not talent, luck, or timing. It's not even how much you want it. The true difference comes down to what you do every single day when no one else is watching. You've seen the pattern. Most people live each day on autopilot, repeating yesterday and hoping for different results. They wait for the perfect moment, telling themselves they'll start tomorrow, or after the kids graduate, or when work slows down, or when they feel ready. They avoid discomfort, drift through routine, and before they know it, years have passed and their dreams are still on the shelf. That's not a flaw in your character. It's the default setting for almost everyone, that of the hoping for almost everyone are for sale to hold. But it's also the easiest thing in your life to change if you have the courage to break the pattern. Zig Ziglar's entire philosophy is a blueprint for escaping this trap. He proved through his own story and the thousands of lives he touched that the cycle of comfort, routine, and almost action can be broken, but only if you decide to do things differently right now. First, you have to believe, not in the "I hope this works out" kind of way, but with the stubborn, gritty conviction that change is possible for you. That belief isn't built on hype, it's built on action and proof. You earn it by doing what most people avoid, stepping into discomfort, taking imperfect action, and refusing to wait for permission. Remember, the only real failure is quitting or never trying at all. But belief without commitment is just a wish. That's where most people stumble. They're excited for a day, maybe a week, but the first time they hit resistance, they fold. Commitment is what makes you get up early, show up late, keep your promises, and keep going when nobody would blame you for quitting. It's what makes you dig in your heels, say, "Not this time," and go all in, even when you're scared. If you've watched this far, you've already shown more commitment than most. But the next step is setting a real, specific goal. Not a vague dream, an actual target with a deadline, a plan, and a reason that matters to you. Write it down, break it into steps. Tell someone who will hold you accountable. Until you make your goal visible and specific, it's just wishful thinking. Once you do, the universe has a way of responding, sometimes in ways you never could have predicted. But don't stop there. Check your definition of success. Are you still chasing what matters to other people? Or are you honest about what matters to you? It's easy to get sucked into the culture of more, bigger, faster, only to realize you're winning at someone else's game. Make your own rules. Grade yourself by your standards. And if you find a minus, don't run from it. Use it as a call to grow. Then get ready to put in the work. Forget about shortcuts. The stove of life doesn't care about intentions, only about effort. You have to add wood before you get heat. You have to pump the well when your arms are tired and your faith is running low. Most of the results you want will stay hidden until you've invested enough to earn them. And the moment you're tempted to give up, remember, you might be one more pump away from breakthrough. But here's the final, quiet superpower mindset. If your head is full of negative self-talk, doubts, and stinking thinking, you'll sabotage yourself no matter how much you work. Gratitude isn't just a feel-good trick, it's the lever that shifts your entire experience. Start by appreciating what you have, even if it's small. Train your mind to look for solutions, not just problems. Change your words, and over time, you'll change your world. And don't forget the last lifelong lesson, stay a relentless student. There is no graduation from growth. The world belongs to people who keep learning, keep trying, keep risking, looking foolish for the chance to get better. Give yourself permission to be a beginner at any age, at any stage. Read, listen, practice, reflect. If you make learning your default setting, there's almost nothing you can't eventually figure out. So what do you do now? It's simple, and it's the hardest thing you'll ever do. Take one action today, not tomorrow, not next week. Today, interrupt your routine. Write down a goal. Pick up a book. Reach out to someone you admire. Stand in front of the mirror and say, "I'm done waiting." Even if it feels small, even if it feels awkward, start, because the truth is, nothing changes until you do. If you take nothing else from this video, let it be this. Comfort is the enemy of progress. Routine is not your friend. The life you want is on the other side of a decision to act, to commit, to stay hungry, and to keep moving forward no matter what. Now, I want to hear from you which of Zig Ziglar's rules hit you the hardest. What action are you committing to today? Drop it in the comments below and let's keep each other accountable. If you know someone who needs this message, someone drifting, waiting, or stuck, share this with them, because sometimes all it takes is a single moment of honesty to start a chain reaction of growth. Thank you for watching, for thinking, and for being part of a rare group, the people who are willing to challenge themselves and actually do something different. Continue to believe, continue to grow, and I'll see you on the journey.